After seating the motherboard, we'll move on to installing the CPU. The processor is delicate, and you should be careful to discharge any static electricity before picking it up. First, locate the socket on your motherboard. In this case, we're installing an Intel Core i7-980X. It uses what's called an LGA 1366 socket. When buying your parts, you need to make sure you buy a processor that fits the correct socket type. On the motherboard, release the socket latch on the side, open the hinge, and remove the plastic protector. Carefully insert the processor into the socket. Be sure to orient the processor in the right direction, or you could damage it or the motherboard. In the case of the i7, it can only be inserted in one direction. After it's firmly seated, close the hinge and secure the latch. It may take a bit of force to close the latch, but don't worry, this is normal. We opted to then apply the thermal compound before attaching the cooling bracket to the motherboard. This Intel i7 included thermal compound in the package, but we purchased Arctic Silver 5. Thermal compound is a gel that you apply to the processor between it and the heatsink. If your heatsink comes with it pre-applied, remove it before using your own. Apply a fair amount to the processor, but don't go overboard. Use something clean with a straight edge to cover the area on top of the processor and try to make sure that there aren't any gaps. After the paste is evenly applied, you can install your cooling fan bracket. Again, Intel included a cooling fan, but we decided to purchase an aftermarket setup, the Arctic Cooling Freezer 7 Pro. The bracket goes over the motherboard socket, and plastic pins are used to secure each of the four corners. You then seat the heatsink and fan straight down onto the processor. In our case, we then used a screw on each side to attach the sink and fan to the bracket. Don't forget to connect the fan's power to the CPU fan header on the motherboard. So to review, first make sure your motherboard and CPU are compatible. Insert the CPU in the right direction and press down firmly. Apply thermal paste to the top of the processor. Then install your heatsink and fan, making sure that everything is secured firmly. For the IDG News Service, I'm Nick Barber.